Most people will never understand why you feel exhausted after conversations that everyone else found effortless, why you lie awake at 2 a.m. untangling a thought no one else even noticed, why you've spent most of your life feeling like you were watching the world through glass, present but somehow separate. If you've ever quietly wondered why you feel this way, this video is for you. And what if I told you that everything you've been quietly ashamed of, the overthinking, the loneliness, the strange sadness that has no name, isn't a flaw? What if it's actually the signature of a mind that operates at a frequency most people never reach? Today, we're going inside the psychology of people with extremely high intelligence. Not IQ scores, not test results. The lived experience, the private world that gifted minds carry, often alone, often in silence. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you may finally understand yourself in a way no one ever thought to explain. Let's start with something most people get completely wrong about highly intelligent people. They assume intelligence feels like confidence, like having all the answers, like breezing through life with a quiet certainty that everything will be fine. But that's not what it feels like from the inside. From the inside, it often feels like being trapped in a room full of noise that only you can hear. Psychologists call this phenomenon overexcitability, a term first developed by Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski. His research found that intellectually gifted individuals don't just think more, they feel more, they perceive more, they process the world at a depth that most people simply aren't wired for. Think about the last time you walked into a room and picked up on something, a tension between two people, a shift in someone's tone, an unspoken story behind someone's smile that no one else seemed to notice. You didn't try to see it, you just did. That's not anxiety, that's not paranoia, that's an extraordinarily calibrated mind doing what it was built to do. You notice things, you absorb things, and yes, sometimes that weight is immense. But here's the reframe. Your sensitivity isn't a crack in your armor, it is the armor. It's a form of emotional intelligence so refined that most people spend decades trying to develop even a fraction of it. You were born with it. That awareness that sometimes overwhelms you? It's the same awareness that makes you irreplaceable in a crisis, unforgettable in a conversation, and the kind of person others trust with their most fragile truths. Now let's talk about the loneliness. Because if there's one thing that almost no one talks about honestly, it's this. Being highly intelligent can be profoundly, achingly lonely. Not because you don't want connection, not because you don't crave it, but because the kind of connection you're looking for is rare. You don't want small talk. You want conversations that crack something open. You want to talk about ideas that keep you up at night, about the strange beauty of impermanence, about what it means to actually be alive. And when you're sitting across from someone who wants to talk about weekend plans and office gossip, something in you quietly dims. Research from the British Journal of Psychology found that highly intelligent individuals reported lower life satisfaction the more time they spent socializing, not because people exhaust them, but because shallow interaction leaves them emptier than solitude does. Let that sink in for a moment. You're not antisocial. You're not broken. You're not too much. You are someone who has experienced genuine depth in thought, in feeling, in connection, and you simply cannot pretend that surface-level interaction satisfies you anymore. You've tasted something real, and you refuse to settle for less. That's not a flaw. That is one of the most quietly courageous things a person can be. In a world that rewards performance and small talk and fitting in, you hold out for something true. That kind of integrity, the kind that doesn't even announce itself, is extraordinarily rare. Here's the third insight, and this one might feel uncomfortably familiar. Highly intelligent people are often their own harshest critics, not in the dramatic, self-pitying way, in a quiet, relentless way. A way that looks fine from the outside, but never really turns off on the inside. You finish something, a project, a conversation, a decision, and before anyone else has even had time to react, You've already found 17 things you could have done better. You replay moments from years ago. You run simulations of futures that haven't happened. You hold yourself to a standard that you would never, not for a single second, apply to someone you loved. Psychologists refer to this as self-directed perfectionism in high IQ individuals, and studies consistently show it's one of the most common and least discussed features of gifted minds. Your brain is so good at pattern recognition, so quick to identify gaps and inconsistencies, that it turns that same laser-sharp analysis on yourself. Imagine a master architect who can walk through any building and immediately see every structural flaw, every misaligned wall, every inefficient space, every missed opportunity for beauty. Now imagine that architect turning that same eye on their own home. Nothing would ever feel finished. Nothing would ever feel quite right. That's what it's like in your mind. But here is what no one tells you. That relentless drive toward better is not self-destruction. Underneath the criticism, underneath the impossible standards, there is something profound, a refusal to be careless with your own life, a deep, almost sacred respect for what you're capable of. The problem isn't that you care too much. The problem is that no one ever taught you how to direct that care with kindness. You learned to use your intelligence as a scalpel on yourself when it was always meant to be a compass. The fourth insight is about boredom and why yours is different from everyone else's. When most people say they're bored, they mean they want something to do, a distraction, a stimulation, something to fill the quiet. When highly intelligent people say they're bored, they mean something closer to suffocation. There is a specific kind of torment in a mind that is constantly seeking, constantly synthesizing, constantly reaching for the next idea, and finding nothing worthy of its full attention. It's not restlessness, it's hunger. A deep intellectual hunger that the ordinary world is rarely equipped to feed. Howard Gardner's research on multiple intelligences and later studies in gifted education showed that intellectually advanced individuals require what researchers call optimal complexity to feel engaged. Too simple, and the mind doesn't just disengage, it turns on itself. It starts manufacturing problems. It starts picking apart relationships, catastrophizing futures, building elaborate, anxious architectures out of nothing, simply because it needs something to work on. Have you ever noticed that your anxiety gets worse when there's nothing meaningful demanding your attention? That you're somehow more at peace when you're deeply absorbed in something challenging than when you have all the time in the world and nothing that truly matters to fill it? That's your mind telling you something important. It's not asking for rest, it's asking for meaning. It's asking for a problem worthy of what it can do. And that distinction between needing rest and needing purpose is something most people never think to make. You are not someone who can be satisfied by comfort alone. You need to be building something, creating something, understanding something. Not for applause, for the feeling it gives you when your mind is finally, fully alive. And now, the fifth insight, the one that might change everything. Highly intelligent people often carry a quiet, private grief that they can't quite explain. A sadness that visits without warning, that doesn't attach itself to any particular event, that simply arrives and sits with them like an old companion. This isn't depression, though for some it becomes that. This is something that psychologists and philosophers have circled around for centuries. The German word is Weltschmerz, world pain. The awareness of the distance between how the world is and how you know it could be. When you think deeply, you cannot avoid seeing clearly. You see the suffering that gets normalized. You see the potential that gets wasted. You see the kindness that never gets expressed, the understanding that never quite arrives, the connections that people almost make and then miss. You see it and you feel it, in a way that is not self-pity. It is empathy at a structural level. Research published in the journal Intelligence found a strong correlation between high IQ and what researchers called hyperbrain, hyperbody responses. Essentially, the idea that a more active, more connected mind is also a more activated nervous system. Your intelligence and your sensitivity are not two separate things. They are one system. You don't just think more, you care more, you grieve more, you hope more. And yes, sometimes that is unbearable. Sometimes you would trade all of it for an easier, quieter mind. I understand that. But consider this. The grief you carry for a world that could be better is not a burden you were given by accident. It's the feeling of someone who has not given up, who has not looked at everything broken and decided it's fine, who still, in spite of everything, believes in something better. That is not weakness. That is the quiet, invisible work of someone who loves the world too much to stop noticing it. And now, I want to offer you something, a reframe, a different way of seeing everything we've talked about today. You have probably spent most of your life being told, in ways both loud and subtle, that something is wrong with you, that you think too much, that you feel too much, that you want too much from conversations, from relationships, from yourself, from the world, that you should simplify, settle, stop making everything so complicated. But what if the story isn't that you're too much for the world? What if the real story is that most of the world hasn't yet caught up to you? Every trait we've explored today, the depth of feeling, the loneliness, the relentless self-examination, the hunger for meaning, the grief for what could be, these are not the symptoms of someone who is broken. They are the fingerprints of a mind that is genuinely, profoundly alive, in a way that most people experience only in their most extraordinary moments. You live there. You live in that extraordinary place every single day. And I know it's exhausting. I know it's isolating. I know that some days you would give anything to just turn the volume down. But I also want you to know this. The world needs people who think the way you think, who feel the way you feel, who refuse to stop asking the questions that make everyone else uncomfortable. You are not a burden on the people around you. You are a rare and necessary kind of mind, the kind that moves things forward, the kind that holds complexity when everyone else is reaching for the simple answer, the kind that sees people fully, deeply, in a way that most people only dream of being seen. So if you've made it to this moment in this video, I want to say something directly to you. Whatever you've been told, whatever name you've given to the parts of yourself that don't fit, whatever you've quietly apologized for, or hidden away, or wished away in the small hours of the morning, those parts are not your problem. They are your gift. The world has just been too small to hold them properly. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. You have always been exactly enough. And you deserve to finally, fully believe that. If this video gave you something, a word for something you've always felt, a moment of feeling less alone in how your mind works, please subscribe. Every week we go deeper into the psychology of the people who think too much, feel too much, and refuse to stop searching for something real. This channel is for you. It has always been for you. I'll see you in the next one.